Hello divine beings. So we are now up to chapter 7. This is the author talk series where I am sharing insights and key significant events that occurred when I was writing this book, Journey from the Ego to the Heart Center. So chapter 7 is the intuitive reading with a shaman. This is an interesting one, and this is now where you will need to listen and practice discernment and notice if you get triggered by what I'm going to share with you, because now we're tapping into the esoteric, we're tapping into the shamanism where people can't see things but you just have to see. Does it resonate with you as truth? Now this is my truth, and this really did happen, and I'll explain to you what occurred on this particular meeting. So there was a shaman I went to, and shamans, it's very interesting. They can be healers. They are able to sort of tap into, as a medium, they can connect with our loved ones that have crossed over. This particular one, I booked an appointment because I wanted to connect with my mother. I felt that there was unfinished business. I had not said what I wanted to say in the hospital when she was getting ready to leave the earth plane. It was a very awkward time. As I said in the very beginning of chapter 1 and 2, I was grieving. I was already grieving her, and she hadn't even left. But I wish I had the time to tell her how I felt, how the love that I wanted to express. And so meeting this shaman was my way to do that. So when the shaman and I sat opposite each other at this distance, she was sort of observing my energy field. She knew that I was a little bit nervous because she goes, "Oh, your throat's a bit ticklish. I think you're a bit nervous," which is true. I had a lump in my throat because you don't know what they're going to say, and I didn't want to give too much away. But basically, she was really able to tap into what I'm doing today. It was almost like she predicted I was going to be doing this type of work where I can be a messenger, I can be a leader in this sort of field. So that was quite interesting. Then she started to tap into my mum's energy, and I remember her sort of going, "Oh, my nose is very blocked. Did your mother have tubes in her nose?" And she did. Towards the end, she did. And she had to tell my mum, "You need to step a bit out of me because I need to now feel you, but I don't want to feel that physical presence of the tubes." And it was so amazing just to watch how the essence or that energy field of my mum was in her, and I could have a conversation with this lady, and my mum was there at the same time. So in this particular chapter, I do go into more detail about what came through. I don't want to give too much away. That's where the fun is. You need to go and get the book. But I do talk about the conversation that we have. There was a bit of giggling, and because there's certain questions that I asked, I knew what the answer needed to be, and when my mother confirmed it, there was this chuckle that came out of me, and it was just lovely to sort of laugh with her at the expression of her answers that came through at the same time. But it was a beautiful moment where I remember the shaman said to me, "What do you want to say to your mum?" And I remember closing my eyes and just feeling into that moment back into the hospital room, and I just told her everything, how much I loved her and I appreciated her, and she was the perfect divine mother that I could, the epitome of a divine feminine mother. She really was. And I remember just pouring out my divine love and crying at the same time, and it was like we sort of connected in that moment in a soulful way. We were hugging in this sphere of energy, and it was that, like, everything just stood still, time stood still, and I remember just thinking, finally I got to tell her how I felt, and it was just beautiful to give her that message. And I remember the shaman saying, "Your mum already knew that." You didn't have to tell her. She actually knew it when we were just staring at each other when she was laying in the hospital bed. We would just gaze at each other. We wouldn't even say words. But apparently that's when my mum and I were telepathically expressing our love. Very interesting. So that was kind of good just to have that confirmation. I was able to tell her because I just couldn't do it in the hospital. So I had closure, and that's what I needed. I just needed closure. And I remember frantically getting back home and typing up everything, even though I had recorded it. I quickly typed it up, and I remember calling my dad and calling my brother, and I'm like, guess what, Mum did this and Mum said that. And we were just like blown away at how accurate certain things that came through were spot on. And I remember one particular bit towards the end when the shaman said to me, oh, by the way, your guides said to you that your car that you have in the driveway is too big. And I knew I have a Mazda Tribute. It's a big 4-wheel drive. And she's like, yeah, your guides don't like that car. They think it's too big for the driveway. And I was like, I didn't know what that meant. Well, get this, 2 weeks later, I was driving home one evening, and I had a second car. It was a little Hyundai Getz. So there's like a little hatchback. My car, I was turning right, and this other fellow in a BMW clipped my back wheel. I spun 180 degrees, and I'm sitting there going, what just happened? And I'm thinking in my head, did I put my indicator? Yes, I put my indicator, so he's in the wrong. And I remember in that moment, oh my gosh, this is the moment. The car is meant to be written off so I can get a new car. And I remember just going, oh my gosh, is this what the guides are talking about? So we got out the car, and he was so sorry because I don't know what happened. I don't know what, even he was thinking, why did I hit her? It's so obvious that I needed to wait for her. But this is what I'm saying. Everything is divine timing. Nothing's an accident. I was supposed to be hit. So he changed my tire. It was quite dented at the back. And I remember the next morning, I went to the car wreckers and I said, what do I do with this car? And in my head, I was thinking, please be a write-off, please be a write-off. And the guy just said to me, oh, that's a write-off. And I was just like so happy. It was really weird. And I remember the insurance, because the actual guide said to the shaman, she will get some money coming in. Well, the money that came through was for the write-off from the insurance. It wasn't much, but it helped. And it was just so funny. I went on to carsales.com. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a manual. It was cheaper than automatic. I wanted a Toyota. I got a Yaris. It was so weird. I went to this lady's house. I drove to Carnegie, took it around the block. Was a good drive. And I remember saying to her, do you mind if I take this car and I'll go and get it checked with my mechanic, and if it's good, I'll buy it off you? And miraculously, she just said, okay. And she gave me the car. I'm sure I gave her my driver's license and perhaps a deposit. I can't remember. I took it to my mechanic, and he said, yeah, it's not bad. It needs a service, and we can do that for you, but this is what it's going to cost. And I remember going back to her and saying, okay, I'm keen on buying the car, but my mechanic said it's going to cost me this much. So can I deduct it from that? And she said yes. And it was so easy. Like it was just so weird. And I remember thinking, that's how the universe works. That's how my guides worked. They co-created that reality for me. And I remember driving it home and go, are you happy now? And it did. It fit in the driveway. And it was blue, and blue reminds me of St. Michael. And it's just a funny story how it all just happened 2 weeks after meeting the shaman. So that's the power of what is out there. We just don't tap into it enough and use it to our advantage. So yes, look, there are a lot of shamans or intuitive readers or mediums that are a bit dodgy. So I'm not saying like you should do it, but if you can find a truthful one that really has that ability and has good reviews and testimonials, I highly recommend it. If you have a loved one that you really want to connect with them and just make sure that they're okay, or is there a certain message that you want to receive from them because you weren't able to do it during this time on earth with them at that time, it really does give you closure. Like for me, I'm just so happy. I don't need to see any more people after that. I got what I needed and I was at peace. And it was the best thing that I could do for 1 hour, and to memorize everything and have it on paper just reconfirms that it was true. I did have a conversation with my mum in the 5th dimension. She came back in that moment in time using the shaman, I suppose, as a vessel or a conduit so she could communicate with me. And it was the most surreal, beautiful moment, and it's probably the closest I'll get to her other than dreams. So that's my chapter. I share with you that amazing meeting and intuitive reading with the shaman. Bye for now.